Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminally, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, a horror mammoth, a feminist gothic and lots of trash. It's my weekly wrap-up. So yes, this is the Gulb-August Wasted Weekend, the midpoint between Gulb-August 2023 and Gulb-August 2024. So Gulb-August is my annual reading event in August where I encourage people to read trashy books. We have all sorts of prompts, we have a bingo card and things like that. But what we also do in February is the Wasted Weekend, so just one weekend where if people want to join in, they can read a trashy book. So I've already read one trashy book this weekend. I've got a few more possibilities, and I put up a video this morning talking about the things I thought I might be reading this weekend and just welcoming people to the weekend. So I'll talk in a bit about the trashy books I'm going to be reading this weekend, but let's start with my general reading for the week. So I've got 5 things to talk to you about that I finished this week. The first of those is a trashy book, a very trashy book, but one I didn't particularly enjoy. That was Beware by Richard Laymon, which I read for Kelsey from Simon Slasher's Year of Laymon. So this was the February book. So this is basically a very Richard Laymon retelling of The Invisible Man, featuring this guy who can be invisible and uses that invisibility to be really creepy, basically. So I really didn't enjoy this very much at all. It's quite weird at times. It's definitely quite uncomfortable at times. It's got more like out and out sex than many Richard Laymon books do, in my experience anyway. And yeah, I didn't love it. I didn't love it, I'm afraid. After that, something very, very different, which I also didn't love, but I certainly like more than Beware. So that was Bluebeard's Castle by Anna Biller. So I read this for the Gothic Heart Reading Challenge, and this is like a Gothic story about this woman who's an author who writes Gothic romances, who has relationships with a couple of men which are both problematic but in different ways. So it's a book that uses a lot of the tropes of Gothic romance fiction, but does that with a very modern feminist lens. And it was very readable. I got through it a lot more quickly than I expected to. It's an enjoyable, quite fast-paced read. There's a lot going on in it. The central character was interesting, but I just felt like it was too clever for me. Basically, I felt like it was trying to convey messages that I didn't quite grasp. So an enjoyable read and a beautifully presented book, as I've shown before. It has these lovely French flaps with like nice photographs inside. But yeah, I didn't love it, if I'm honest. Moving on then, something again very different, but this I did like a lot. So this is The Lost Case Files of Sherlock Holmes by Alex Pryor. So I read this for the Holmes is Where the Heart Is reading event that's taking place this month. So an event dedicated to Sherlock Holmes, both stories by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and more modern stories like these ones. So this has 6 Holmes short stories in it. 4 of them are quite short, 2 of them are a bit longer, but very much in the classic kind of Holmes style. I really, really enjoyed this book. It was just a fun, diverting read. The shorter mysteries are really quite simple, but really enjoyable nevertheless. The longer stories are a bit more complex, but just as enjoyable. There's one about a murder on an HMS warship that was really fun. There's one about some objects going missing from the British Museum, which was really interesting and had a nice kind of slightly modern twist at the end of it. So yeah, a very enjoyable collection of Holmes short stories. If you're a Sherlock Holmes fan, I definitely recommend picking this up if you fancy a modern pastiche of the kind of classic Holmes style. So yeah, I had such a good time with this book. I really, really enjoyed it. I've got another book by Alex Pryor, a sci-fi book, which I'm going to be reading soon. But yeah, looking forward to getting to that one. But yeah, if you like Holmes, definitely check this out. After that, something much longer. So Summer of Night by Dan Simmons. So this was my Patreon group read this month. I've read this before, so I read this when it came out, or shortly after it came out in the 90s, and I remember like really loving it. I really, really enjoyed this at the time. So I think probably about 18 or 19 when I read this, and I thought it was fantastic. on the reread, I didn't think it was fantastic, but I did think it was really good. So it's a like nostalgic coming of age horror story about like dark goings on in a small town. So definitely bears comparison to Stephen King's It, but is a simpler book than It. So whereas It, you know, has the main characters both as kids and then as adults, this book takes place all in the kind of late 50s, early 60s, over the course of a summer, and just has the protagonists as children. So they are kind of 13, that sort of age, and one of their like classmates goes missing, and this group of kids kind of band together to try and figure out what's going on. And there's all sorts of weird, creepy stuff going on in the town that they live in. So it was a really entertaining read. It's the first half is reasonably slow, and then it gets much more fast-paced in the second half. It does kind of have the feel of a Goosebumps book, albeit a very long Goosebumps book. It's over 600 pages, with some quite adult themes in it as well. So there's definitely some darker kind of society-type stuff in here, as well as the horror. So yeah, an enjoyable read, but not quite as good as I remembered it being. This morning then, for the wasted weekend, I've read Confessions of a Window Cleaner by Timothy Lee. So this is one of the first of a series of novels that Timothy Lee wrote in the kind of I think late 70s into the 80s, which are kind of bawdy comedies. So this one about this young guy, the Timothy Lee. So Timothy Lee was a pseudonym. I forget now the name of the actual author, Christopher something. So Timothy Lee was this pseudonym, and these stories are supposedly told by Timothy Lee. So in this one, Timothy, who's a young guy, kind of late teens, just got out of prison, and gets a job as a window cleaner basically, and his brother-in-law kind of spurs him on with tales of how all these bored housewives will want to kind of have I'm trying to think of a polite way to put it, but will want to have more than their windows cleaned by him, and it was very dated. It was and I expected it to be, and I think trashy books can be interesting in that regard, in that they tend to be very focused on what will be sellable, what will be successful at that point in time. They don't care about longevity. They just care about making a quick buck. So this felt very dated in terms of a lot of its language. So it's racist, it's homophobic, it's to a degree sexist. But I did think that it was interesting that a lot of the female characters in the book are the kind of instigators, if you like, of the sexual relations they have with Timothy. So it definitely felt like they had agency, and they were, in control of their own desires and their sexual destiny, if you like. That's a slightly pompous way of talking about what is a very silly, trashy book. But it was an entertaining read, despite all the kind of problematic language. I don't think I will read more in the series, but it was quite fun. So yes, read that, and I'm now reading this, The Rue by Alan Baxter. So this is a kind of a modern short horror novel, but that is kind of a throwback to the 80s. So this, I believe, started as a bit of a joke on Twitter, where someone had shared this news story about a kangaroo terrorising an Australian town. Keelan Patrick Burke, the author, is responsible for this cover, so I think he came up with this cover image for a supposed kind of 80s trashy horror novel, and Alan Baxter then wrote that book. So it's deliberately tongue-in-cheek and silly, but I'm enjoying it so far. So yes, it is indeed about a small Australian town being terrorised by this huge kangaroo, and I'm there for that. I'm enjoying it. After that then, so I did show these in the video I put up this morning. I think the thing I definitely want to get to this weekend is Dead Air by Bob Larson. So Bob Larson was a radio host in the States in the 80s, who was one of the kind of main drivers originally of the Satanic Panic. This is a horror novel that he wrote about a radio host whose listeners phone in and say that they are, have witnessed satanic acts and things like that. All the satanic acts that are in this book are supposedly real stories that were told to Bob Larson by his real listeners. It does sound super trashy. I've heard rumours about some of the weird satanic acts that are in this book, so I'm really looking forward to reading them. And then if I get through that, I've got some kind of trashy. What's the word I'm looking for? Trashy reliables. So I've got a Mac Bolan book, a Witches book, and a Mills and Boon double. So hopefully I'll manage to get to at least one of these as well. So that's what I've been reading. After the Garborgus Wasted Weekend, I will be trying to get to... Oh, I can't see where it is now. I've got it here somewhere. Oh, here we go. A Dog's Ransom by Patricia Highsmith, so something a bit classier for my ongoing Patricia Highsmith read-through, so I'll probably be reading that next week. And then beyond that, I'm not sure. I think I will have exhausted my TBR by that point. Oh, actually, no, there's one other thing, which I have started reading the other day, which I'll get back to next week, which is Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes. So a new kind of sci-fi horror novel. Read the first chapter of it the other day and really enjoyed it. So I got sent an advance digital copy of that by the publisher Tor. I've not read S.A. Barnes's other book, Dead Silence, I think it's called, which has had rave reviews. So I'm enjoying this so far and hoping it turns out to be as good as Dead Silence appears to be, based on everyone else's views of it. So yeah, enjoying that too. Right, in terms of channel stuff then, so in the last week I did my review of A Simple Plan by Scott Smith, a fantastic thriller which I really enjoyed. I did a video about my new project to read every book that I haven't yet read by Evan Hunter. I did an unhaul video, so my first ever unhaul video on the channel, and also a book haul video. In the week ahead, I'm going to do a video, I think, about finishing authors, so kind of partly inspired by that Evan Hunter project, but also by some other things I've been thinking about recently. So that experience of like finishing every book by an author and what that feels like. I'm going to do an unboxing video for this, a new e-reader device I recently picked up. This is the Books Palmer, a nice little smartphone sized e-reader, which I've been using this weekend so far. I read that Confessions book on it and really enjoyed using it. And then I'm also going to do probably a Pile of Possibilities video for March Mystery Madness, and also a review of something. I haven't decided quite what yet. If I finish Dead Air, I might do a review of Dead Air. Anyway, that's me for this week. So hopefully you are taking part in the Wasted Weekend and reading some trash. Hopefully you're having a good time with it. Do let me know in the comments what you've been reading, what you're reading for the Wasted Weekend, and what you've been reading generally this week. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.